Okay, hey guys. So this is a little bit of an introductory video to the backend system that we had discussed in our email. So this first email here is going to discuss the first of the two platforms that comprise the entire Speedy Publishing e-reader system. So as we mentioned before, there are two platforms. The first one is for an administrator, and the second one is going to be for learners, instructors, or teachers and students, and they both log into the same platform. So in this case here, what we're going to do is that we're going to go ahead and log into the administrator's platform and then walk through a quick process of showing the different things that are set up for that particular classroom as well. Okay, so first things first, what we're going to do is that we're going to log into the administrator's platform. So as we mentioned before, the administrator has the ability to distribute content, to create readers, and of course to view analytics, right? So in this case here, what we've done, instead of actually creating all of our content and having them book by book by book, we've kind of separated them into collections, which makes it very, very easy for a teacher for the administrator to assign that to a particular student or teacher or an entire classroom, right? So in this case here, what you're looking on are all of those collections. And we do have quite a bit of other collections to add. As I think I had mentioned before, we have around 230 books to publish, and we're doing that between now and the middle of October. And they will be added again to the backend system as well. Okay, so to begin with, the first thing we want to do is that we can see that the administrator has control of creating users, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click on the users tab here. And in this case here, we can of course add users, or we can create classrooms. So in this case here, what we're going to do is that we're going to add a user really quickly. So I'm going to come here, and I'm just going to go ahead and add a Mackin teacher. And so I'm going to grab that email here, and I'm going to give the first name here, which is going to go ahead and call it Mackin teacher. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the email here. And I'm going to set the password. I'm going to use a general password, which is going to be Mackin1 with the exclamation mark. I'm going to go ahead and plug that in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on set. So once I've plugged that in, I'm then going to go ahead and check the role as the teacher. And I'm going to go ahead and click on create. So now we can see that we've created the Mackin teacher user here. And that person's role, or that user's role, is set as teacher. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add another user. And I'm going to now create the Mackin student. So I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to go ahead and say Mackin student. And then I'm going to go ahead and plug in that email here. I'm going to go ahead and set the password. I'm going to grab Mackin1 here. Plug that in. I'm going to hit set. And then I'm going to set that role to student. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on create. Now, it's important to note that if we were to do this for every single student one by one, it would be virtually impossible. So there is a way to do this where we can download a CSV spreadsheet, populate that with the name, the username, the password, and everything else, upload that, and it will automatically be created. And that can do, I think, up to 20,000 users all at once for any particular role, right? So that's very, very easy to kind of onboard a student if we're using the backend system here, or onboard an entire, school if needs be. That can be done fairly easy. Okay, so I'll head back here. So having created a student as well as a teacher, I'll head over to create an existing classroom, and that's also very simple. So I'm going to go ahead and click on add class. I'm going to call this here Mackin Science class. And I'm going to go ahead and just say this is the science class for the Mackin users. I'll hit a full stop here. And then I can also now set the data sharing. Now we've got data sharing where the learner or the student can share data with the teacher or instructor. We also have where the learner student can share with other learners or students. We also have where the instructor can, of course, share with the learner, which is typically what you want, right? So that's both for notes as well as highlights. So we typically want to keep all of that data checked. And then, of course, we now need to set the roles. So in this case here, we can see one teacher who is available for selection. So I'm going to go ahead and select that teacher. Then I'm going to go over to the student tab here, and I can see that there's one student here, and I'm going to go ahead and select that student here. Now, it's very simple to be able to create these classrooms as well in terms of selecting all of the students. There is a way to actually do that functionality quite easy, right? So I'm going to go ahead, having done that, I'm going to go ahead and click the Save button. And so now we have created an existing class, which is the Mackin Science class, right? So now I'm going to head back to the distribution of the content. And in this case here, I'm going to select on collections. And because we've got grade 3 science STEM here, I'm going to go ahead and head over here to classes. I'm going to click on that tab. I'm going to check this box here because we've got, an umpteen amount of licenses, which would be assigned by us. We're going to select the class here, right? And of course, once we've selected that class, we could restrict it to teachers view only. We're not going to do that. We've got 2 users, so we've got 1 Mackin teacher, and then of course we have 1 Mackin student. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to hit distribute. And what that does is that it distributes all of that existing content to that specific class. So once the student logs in, or once the teacher logs in into the separate platform, all of that content is now distributed. And so it makes it very, very, very easy. And then, of course, finally, there are other issues, there are other things that you can actually do in terms of course, looking on your analytics. So this gives you number of activated users, the content licenses, the most popular, the 10 most active classes, content coverage, user interaction, the web player user, and usage by geography in terms of where that particular student might be. And so there's a lot of data that's here. It's very, very data rich. So the key thing for us again is, of course, we can drill that down to, of course, whether it's going to be a user, whether it's going to be a teacher, etc., 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 right? So that's the administrator's login. And of course, this is a very, very easy way, but as we mentioned before, you can actually create all of this. You can actually utilize the backend quite simply, or you can onboard using Google Classroom, ClassLink, Clever, OneRoster. There are many, many different ways for you to be able to onboard students. And it doesn't have to be done this specific way, but this is a very, very easy way to do it, especially if you're doing it using a spreadsheet. Just makes it very, very simple. And of course, we do have our techs on board who will be able to kind of tweak anything that we need to do in terms of being able to authenticate or to connect to our backend system.